Welcome to today's deep dive. We are tackling a truly profound topic today.
Yeah, we got a really dense one to get through.
We really do. It's an exploration of spiritual accountability and, grace and ultimate liberation.
Right.
And our source material for this journey is this classic piece of Sikh literature. We're looking at excerpts from The Sovereign Shelter of the Divine Master.
Right, written by Guru Arjan Dev Ji.
Exactly. And specifically, just to give everyone the roadmap, we are looking at Rag Sorat'h on page 618 from the 5th Mehla.
And we should mention, we're working with a few different layers here.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have the original Gurmukhi text, the transliterations, and we're looking at both the Punjabi and English translations to really get the full picture.
Because there is so much nuance in those translations.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to dissect this brief but incredibly dense text. We really want to uncover how it navigates this massive tension between our deepest, darkest human flaws on one side and the concept of ultimate divine forgiveness on the other, which, according to the text, ends in total spiritual independence.
Yeah, that independence part is huge.
It is. But to really grasp the weight of what this text is doing right out of the gate, I want everyone to just think for a moment about how much time and energy we all spend, curating our lives.
No, it's exhausting.
Right, like we filter our photos, we rehearse difficult conversations in the shower.
Yes.
We carefully manage what our boss sees versus what our family sees. It is this constant effort to control the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially operate as round-the-clock PR representatives for our own existence.
That is exactly it. We are our own PR reps.
Because presenting a polished exterior, it gives us this sense of control. It makes us feel safe, insulating us from the vulnerability of being truly known with all our flaws out in the open.
Right, so imagine standing in front of someone or something where all that PR spin was just instantly stripped away.
Oh.
Like an entity that doesn't just see your curated feed, but has this direct, unblockable line to your raw, unedited internal reality.
That is terrifying for most people.
It is. Every petty thought you've ever had, every hidden motive, every mistake you managed to sweep under the rug, just laid completely bare.
Right, because it represents the ultimate loss of privacy.
Yeah.
But historically, if you look at philosophical and religious texts across the world, this exact moment of terrifying, unavoidable exposure, it's the required starting point for profound spiritual transformation.
Because you can't fix what you're hiding.
Exactly. You cannot cure a condition that you are actively hiding from the physician.
Okay, let's unpack this because Guru Arjan Dev Ji does not ease the reader into this concept at all.
No, not at all. Drops you right in.
Drops us right into the deep end of that exact exposure. The very first line establishes the foundation of this entire spiritual journey. It translates to, only you know the state of my innermost self. You alone can judge me.
And looking at the source there, the original text uses the word gat.
Gat, right.
Which refers to that inner state or condition. And it establishes this dynamic where concealment is mathematically impossible.
Wow, mathematically impossible.
Yeah, because there is no negotiating with this observer. The observer's knowledge of your internal reality is just absolute.
I was actually trying to conceptualize what that actually feels like.
Yeah.
And it's like looking into a perfectly accurate, inescapable mirror.
Oh, I like that.
Or, wait, maybe even better, imagine a journal, but instead of you writing your thoughts into it, the journal is somehow reading you.
The journal is reading you.
Right. It knows the intention behind your actions before you even fully articulate it to yourself.
Right.
There's zero use in trying to justify your actions because the entity looking at you already possesses the absolute truth of that innermost self.
What's fascinating here is how the text frames this concept of judgment, which is, it's highly distinct from our usual cultural understanding of that word.
How so?
Well, when we hear the word judge in modern English, we almost instantly picture a courtroom.
Right, yeah, law and order stuff.
Exactly. We envision a public trial, an elevated bench, a gavel, and this harsh, punitive sentence being handed down from a place of authority and distance.
Right.
But the context here, especially when you dig into the nuances of the Punjabi translations, it suggests an entirely different, incredibly intimate dynamic.
Oh.
The Punjabi translation notes something crucial. It states that the act of taking the shelter of this divine presence is what actually brings an end to the individual's bad inner state.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this right. If taking shelter ends the bad state, then the judgment being described isn't like a precursor to a penalty.
Right.
Because when I think of judgment, I think of adversarial consequences, like I messed up, the judge sees it, and now I have to pay a fine or go to jail.
But the framework here is medical rather than judicial.
Oh, medical, okay.
Yeah, the judgment is a perfect, flawless diagnosis. The divine sees the bad inner state, the ego, the hidden darkness, all those petty grievances. But the act of being seen and willingly leaning into the entity that sees you, that functions as the cure.
That is wild.
The knowing isn't for the sake of condemnation. It's entirely for the sake of healing.
So the perfectly accurate mirror isn't there to shame you.
No.
It's there to show you exactly where the wound is so it could be treated.
Exactly.
That dramatically shifts how we view accountability.
Doesn't it?
Because instead of hiding your flaws to dodge a penalty, you are exposing them to secure a remedy.
Right, you want the diagnosis.
But following that logic leads us directly into a very heavy realization in the text.
It does.
Because once you acknowledge that perfect mirror exists, you have to actually look at what the mirror is reflecting.
And it's not always pretty.
No. The text immediately moves to, please forgive me, O Lord God Master. I have committed thousands of sins and mistakes.
Yeah.
And looking at the source notes we have, the original text uses the phrase laakh, which translates to hundreds of thousands or millions of mistakes.
Right. A staggering, almost incomprehensible volume of error.
So what does this all mean? Because my immediate reaction to reading millions of sins is that the text is trying to induce this sense of crushing guilt.
Oh, sure.
Like, speaking from personal experience, if I make just one or two significant mistakes at work, or if I handle a situation poorly with a friend, I can easily spiral into shame.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
I'll lie awake at night agonizing over it.
Right.
So having to formally acknowledge millions of sins, that feels like a recipe for total psychological collapse.
That reaction is incredibly common, especially through a modern lens where we equate error with, an irredeemable personal failure.
Yeah.
We hear a phrase like millions of sins, and we immediately visualize a ledger of deliberate, malicious crime.
Exactly, like I'm a supervillain.
Right, but the tone of the text, and this is illuminated brilliantly by the Punjabi translation, it paints a much more compassionate picture of the human condition.
Okay, compassionate how?
Well, the Punjabi context describes this state not as some coordinated rebellion, but as wandering while committing these millions of sins.
Wandering. That completely reframes the intent behind the mistakes.
Doesn't it? Think about the fundamental difference between a calculating criminal breaking into a house and a person who is profoundly, hopelessly lost in a dense forest in the dead of night.
Oh, wow.
The text is not depicting deliberate evil malice. It's illustrating a lost, disoriented individual stumbling around in the dark,
Tripping over roots.
tripping over roots, breaking branches, making mistake after mistake, simply because they lack direction and illumination.
It's like trying to navigate a complex maze while completely blindfolded.
Yes.
Like you aren't hitting the dead ends on purpose.
Yeah.
You're knocking things over because you physically cannot see the path.
Yeah.
So the volume of mistakes is high, but the intent is born of confusion, not cruelty.
Exactly. And that framing changes the emotional trajectory of the entire verse.
Right.
Notice what the author does immediately after acknowledging this massive volume of wandering and error.
What's that?
There is no dwelling on anticipated punishment. There is no bargaining, no attempt to explain away the blindfold.
Right, there's no PR spin.
No spin at all. The text pivots instantly to a plea for grace. Please forgive me, O Lord God Master.
Wow.
It is this profoundly realistic, humble acknowledgement of inherent human imperfection, followed in the exact same breath by a reach for the only entity capable of providing that true north.
The psychology of that pivot is just wild to me.
Why is that?
Well, if I mess up a million times at a job, my instinct is avoidance.
Oh, for sure.
Like I am hiding from my boss, I am avoiding eye contact in the hallway, I am trying to minimize my presence.
Just sink into the floor.
Exactly. Our human instinct is to retreat from the authority we've disappointed.
Yeah.
But the author here does the exact opposite. Right after confessing to a lifetime of wandering, the text says, "Oh, my dear Lord God Master, you are always near me." And then, "Oh Lord, please bless your disciple with the shelter of your feet."
Defying the instinct to run away from our failures requires an immense amount of trust in the nature and the judge.
It reminded me of the behavioral psychology of toddlers.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, if a little kid is playing rough in the living room and they accidentally knock over like a heavy glass vase and it shatters everywhere,
Right.
a kid with a healthy, secure attachment to their parent doesn't run out the front door and hide in the woods.
Right. They don't run away?
No, they burst into tears and they run directly to the parent.
Oh, yeah.
They bury their face in the parent's legs.
Yeah.
They seek physical protection from the very person whose property they just destroyed.
That is such a great way to put it.
Because they know intrinsically that the parent is a source of safety first and a disciplinarian second.
That analogy perfectly captures the emotional weight of seeking the shelter of your feet. It's an act of total vulnerability and seeking proximity in the very face of profound failure.
And the text actually marks this specific moment structurally, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Because the source notes indicate a pause right after this plea for shelter.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, that structural marker is incredibly significant. In the original Gurmukhi, this is called the rahau.
Rahau, okay.
Which literally translates to pause. And in this tradition of poetic musical scripture, the rahau serves as the thematic anchor of the entire verse.
Oh, wow.
It is the central thesis. Everything read before it and everything read after it revolves around this one core message.
So the central thesis isn't the terrifying mirror.
No.
And it isn't the millions of sins.
Exactly. The author wants the reader to literally pause the recitation, stop the music, and reflect on this astonishing paradox of proximity.
Paradox of proximity.
Right, because despite the profound flaws, despite the thousands of blindfolded mistakes, the divine is not depicted as some distant, angry entity sitting on a throne in another galaxy waiting to hurl lightning bolts.
Right.
The text explicitly defines this entity as a sustaining master who is always near. The perfectly accurate judge resides right there, intimately close to the one being diagnosed.
I find that incredibly comforting on one level, but logically kind of mind-bending on another.
How do you mean?
Well, if this perfectly accurate judge is intimately close, always near me, and is constantly absorbing the reality of my million petty flaws and wanderings, how does that judge not get dragged down by the sheer weight of my mess?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, because human patience has a breaking point.
It absolutely does, and the text anticipates that exact logical hurdle. To explain how the divine can sustain that level of intimate proximity to human failure without being corrupted by it, the perspective has to shift dramatically.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because immediately after establishing this tight, intimate closeness, like hiding at the feet of the master,
Right.
the author zooms all the way out to a cosmic scale.
Yeah.
The very next line reads, "Infinite and endless is my Lord and Master. He is lofty, virtuous, and profoundly deep." It feels like a paradox again. Like, how does the text reconcile an entity that is right here near me with descriptors that sound astronomical?
Well, it's a necessary shift in scale to explain the mechanics of the forgiveness we were just talking about. We establish the human output, thousands, maybe millions of mistakes,
Yeah.
bring a million offenses to the most patient human on earth, and they will eventually break. Human capacity for grace is a finite resource. It has a bottom.
Oh, absolutely.
Eh.
I can barely maintain my grace when someone cuts me off in traffic twice in one commute, let alone a lifetime of offenses.
Right, exactly. So to handle the sheer unrelenting volume of human wandering, the shelter being sought cannot operate on human metrics.
Okay.
The text synthesizes these massive descriptors, drawing on the translations of the master being in a high spiritual state, possessing all virtues, and being profoundly deep.
Right.
It does this to illustrate a capacity that defies human limitation.
The phrase profoundly deep really sticks out there.
It's a great phrase. Imagine standing on the edge of a small pond and you dump a large handful of toxic, muddy sludge into the water.
Okay, the pond gets murky.
Right. The ecosystem of that small pond is instantly disrupted. The water turns murky, the balance is thrown off, the boundaries might even overflow if it's small enough.
Right.
That is the finite human capacity for absorbing pain or offense. Now imagine taking that exact same handful of toxic mud and dropping it into the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right over the Mariana Trench.
Oh.
Right.
The ocean wouldn't even register the impact.
Yeah, exactly.
The mud just dissipates into the vastness.
And the profoundly deep nature described in the text operates just like that ocean. The infinite, endless nature of the master is precisely why it can handle the thousands of sins without being compromised, angered, or overwhelmed.
So it scales to the problem.
It scales infinitely. The text carefully balances the intimate closeness with this cosmic scale to offer the reader a profound reassurance. The divine is close enough to hear your quietest plea for help, but vast enough to swallow your lifetime of mistakes without a ripple.
That paints such a clear picture of the mechanics at play here.
Yeah.
We start with the perfect mirror that reveals our inner state.
Yeah.
We acknowledge the wandering and the sheer volume of our missteps.
Right.
We fight the urge to hide, and instead we run toward the judge for the shelter of its feet.
Yes.
And we trust that this shelter is infinitely deep, capable of absorbing all our mess without overflowing.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the climax of this deep dive, the actual real-world result of engaging in this process.
The ultimate transformation of the individual's reality.
And the language in this final section is just incredibly striking.
It really is.
The text concludes, cutting away the noose of death. The Lord has made Nanak his slave, and now what does he owe to anyone else? The author is referring to himself becoming a slave, or a dasaro, to this master. He's declaring total absolute submission.
Right.
But paradoxically, this absolute submission is presented as the ultimate form of liberation. Like becoming a slave to this specific master somehow cancels out every other debt in the universe.
And this raises an important question about the nature of the captivity we are being liberated from.
Okay.
Because the text uses two highly evocative metaphors here, depending on the translation you reference. You have the noose of death, and, as the Punjabi translation provides for vital context, the snare of vices.
Okay, a snare.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a snare is a trap designed to catch something that is moving blindly, like you get caught in a snare while you're wandering in the dark.
Exactly. During all that wandering we talked about, making those millions of mistakes, we aren't just bumping into walls.
Right.
We are actively getting entangled. We become deeply dependent on the mechanics of the world around us.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we crave societal approval. We are paralyzed by the fear of judgment from our peers.
All right.
We chase wealth as a shield against vulnerability. We are terrified of losing our social status. We live our lives constantly in debt to the world psychologically, emotionally, and socially.
Wow.
The Punjabi concept referenced here is muthaji, which carries this heavy implication of subservience, dependency, or constantly needing favors and validation from others to feel secure.
That concept of muthaji is just incredibly relevant today.
Oh, totally.
Because if you think about the modern snares we live in, right?
Yeah.
We base our self-worth on the validation of strangers on the internet.
Constantly.
We take on massive financial debt to buy things to impress neighbors we don't even like.
Right.
We contort our personalities to climb corporate ladders, just terrified that if we slip, we lose our value as human beings.
Yes.
We walk around feeling like we owe the world our compliance and we are at the total mercy of the world's shifting opinions. That is just a suffocating way to live.
It is a profound form of psychological bondage.
Yeah.
But look at the economic shift that happens when you take the sovereign shelter. By submitting entirely to the infinite, profoundly deep master, by willingly becoming its devoted servant or slave, you are essentially transferring your entire economy of existence out of the world's jurisdiction.
Out of the world's jurisdiction. Because if you belong entirely to an infinite entity, you cannot possibly owe anything to a finite system.
Precisely. If the ultimate, inescapable judge has already seen your absolute worst inner state, provided a perfect diagnosis, forgiven your millions of wandering mistakes, and granted you infinite shelter, what possible power could the judgment of a coworker, a neighbor, or society at large hold over you?
None. Absolutely none.
None. The noose is permanently cut. The snare of needing the world's validation is broken because your value is secured by the highest possible authority.
Yeah.
It is a declaration of absolute, unshakable spiritual independence. You owe nothing to anyone else because your ledger has been entirely cleared by the divine.
That is a breathtaking framework for living. It completely dismantles how we typically manage our daily anxieties.
It really does.
Looking at everything we've covered in this deep dive today,
Yeah.
this classic text offers a deeply practical tool set for anyone listening.
Absolutely.
We spend an exhausting amount of our lives terrified that people will find out we aren't the polished, perfect PR avatars we pretend to be.
Right.
We carry the heavy, silent weight of our past mistakes, our wanderings, and we allow those missteps to dictate our worth. We let them keep us trapped in that snare of subservience to the world's expectations.
We allow the fear of our inner state to dictate our external reality, keeping us perpetually in debt to public opinion.
But this text offers a radical alternative.
It does.
It argues that true accountability doesn't mean living in chronic fear of being found out. It means willingly standing in front of that perfectly accurate mirror and admitting we are lost.
Yeah.
It means seeking a sovereign shelter that is vast enough to absorb our flaws without judgment, which in turn completely neutralizes all those lesser worldly anxieties. The core message is that you do not have to carry the debt of your wandering forever.
No, you don't. It outlines a profound shift from a mindset anchored in scarcity, fear, and hiding to a mindset anchored in infinite grace and total transparency.
Yeah.
Which actually leaves me with a final thought I want our listeners to explore on their own.
Okay.
And this builds directly on the mechanics of their final line.
I'd love to hear it.
So the text ends with this triumphant realization. Once you take shelter in the divine, the snare is cut, and you owe absolutely nothing to anyone else.
Right.
It makes me wonder if true ultimate liberation leaves us owing nothing to the world. Does this imply that all of our agonizing, everyday human anxieties, our desperate need to please people, our fear of what society thinks of us, our feelings of being endlessly indebted to the pursuit of worldly success, are all of these actually just illusions?
Yeah.
Are these heavy, suffocating burdens we carry every day simply symptoms of the fact that we are trying to find shelter in the finite world rather than seeking the infinite shelter described in the text?
That completely changes how you look at the mirror and what you do when you see your reflection.